All right, so today I have read the beginning of chapter 5. I'm currently working on reading the second part of this chapter, which is the 13 English colonies. So I'm going to start at page 47, and I'm going to read from there. The colonization of America shifted wealth and power away from the Mediterranean region to the countries of Western Europe. Spain was greatly enriched by American gold and silver. The Protestant England became engaged in a series of wars against Catholic Spain. England's rulers desired to stake a claim for lands and riches in the New World so that they could match Spain's wealth. England's colonies were established for political, economic, religious, and social reasons. The first English colonies. The adventurer Sir Walter Raleigh persuaded Queen Elizabeth to found a colony. This first English colony in the New World at Roanoke, North Carolina, originally consisted of 100 householders. Founded in 1585, this settlement lasted only 10 months and then mysteriously failed. The colony had disappeared without a trace. None of the colonists could be found. All personal belongings were left in the place as if they had disappeared into thin air. Although two first attempts at English colonization were failures, it brought attention to the dangers of creating a new society in the far-off distant land. Jamestown in 1607. The first permanent English colony in the New World was established by the Virginia Company for economic reasons. This private company hoped to profit from gold and other resources. 104 English men and boys built a settlement of cabins surrounded by a stockade fence near the James River at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. The river and settlement were named after England's King James I. These first settlers were men who came in search of gold. What they found in the area was a swamp plagued by mosquitoes that caused malaria. Half the group were artisans, soldiers, and laborers. The other half were gentlemen who did not care to work. They quickly used up all of their supplies, and many later died from the lack of food. After their leader, Captain John Smith, returned to England in 1609, the colonists at Jamestown endured a second winter of starvation and death. Having failed to plant or store enough grain for their needs, the settlers became desperate for food. The starving time, or winter of 1609, saw only 60 of the first 214 settlers at Jamestown survive. Despite these initial setbacks, the colony at Jamestown became profitable by growing tobacco for sale in Europe. By 1619, Jamestown was exporting tons of tobacco to England for the new fashion of smoking. Jamestown's new tobacco economy created Jamestown's new tobacco economy created a labor shortage. The need for laborers was so great that early settlers attempted to enslave the area's Native American Indians. However, these Indians were unwilling to be used as forced laborers and often escaped into the surrounding forests. The first enslaved people from Africa arrived in the colony in 1619, as well as the first women. As the success of tobacco planting spread, using African slaves would grow to become the foundation of the southern agrarian economy. Later, the area of colonial settlement spread from Jamestown to other parts of Virginia. The capital of the colony was moved to Williamsburg. Virginia eventually had both rich plantation owners and small farmers, who grew to become one of the wealthiest colonies. I am having trouble reading this, let me tell you. Pilgrims and Puritans. A second English colony was founded for religious reasons by a group of Protestant Christians known as the Pilgrims, or Separatists. They were unhappy with the policies of the Church of England. In an attempt to escape persecution, the Pilgrims first fled to Holland. In 1620, a group of Pilgrims sailed to the Americas. They landed at Plymouth in present-day Massachusetts. At Plymouth, they established the first permanent European settlement in New England. They committed themselves to the life based on the Bible. Before going ashore, the Pilgrims pledged themselves to self-government by signing an agreement known as the Mayflower Compact. they agreed to form their own government and to obey its laws. Another group of English Protestants, the Puritans, landed in nearby Massachusetts Bay in 1630. They also came to practice their own religious beliefs without persecution. They wanted to purify the church. These Puritans planned to establish a more virtuous society based on what they believed was God's will. One Puritan writer stated that they would establish a city upon a hill, a symbol of goodness and virtuous living for all the world to see. Unlike the adventurers at Jamestown, the Pilgrims and Puritans sailed to the New World as entire families, along with their wives and children. Eventually, their two settlements merged into the single colony of Massachusetts. Early Puritans and Pilgrims lived simple, religious lives. Their clothing was usually black or gray. They believed that hard work was the key to getting into heaven. Sundays and holidays were strictly observed, and religious leaders played an important role in governing the colony. The other English colonies. Other English colonies were founded for a variety of reasons. Rhode Island was founded by the Puritans who did not ordinarily permit others to practice their religion. In 1636, Roger Williams therefore left Massachusetts to start his own colony at Rhode Island, based on principles of religious toleration. Among those who fled to Rhode Island was Anne Hutchinson. While living in Massachusetts, she had often met with friends after church and held religious discussions. She expressed her belief that God revealed himself to individuals without the aid of clergy. Puritan leaders saw this as an act against God, since they believed that God could only be revealed to ministers. Anne Hutchinson was put on trial, where she claimed that God had spoken to her directly. She was found guilty of lying, and in 1637 she was banished from Massachusetts. Soon after, she joined Williams and other deserters in Rhode Island. Connecticut and New Hampshire. Other Massachusetts settlers formed new colonies in Connecticut and New Hampshire. Settlers in Connecticut, led by Thomas Hooker, established self-government in the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. In addition, the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut provided a basis for future governing of the colony.